Western Mass News is getting answers after a jury found the Greenfield Police Department discriminated against a black officer.
Meanwhile, the police chief remains on the payroll. Now, city councilors are cutting the department's budget to send a message.
It's very, very painful for everybody involved.
Greenfield Mayor Roxanne Wiedegardner dealing with the fallout of a jury verdict in a racial discrimination lawsuit prompting budget cuts by the city council that the Greenfield Police Union claims will have a devastating impact on public safety and could include up to 8 police officers laid off, dismemberment of the Detective Bureau, elimination of community resource officers, 0 police coverage overnight, and elimination of the K-9 program. In May, a special jury in Hampshire County Superior Court found Police Chief Robert Haig Jr. and the department discriminated against former black officer Patrick Buchanan, denying him a promotion back in 2014 over racial animus. Mayor Wiedegardner placed Chief Haig on paid administrative leave shortly after.
I don't have enough information yet to say whether I would ask Chief Haig to be removed or not.
In response, Greenfield City Councilors slashing the police budget by $400,000, roughly the amount Buchanan was awarded in lost back wages and emotional distress.
We should be firing the corrupt leadership, and we should be reducing the force.
They acted to send a message, and that is not the basis upon which responsible people charged with governing make decisions. And every citizen in the city of Greenfield who relies on the police department should be angry.
Greenfield's acting police chief denied our interview request, but the union says it will be 8 junior officers who lose their jobs, not top brass. These budget cuts and high gas prices prompting some immediate changes. Instead of 4 singly staffed cruisers out on the roads at a time, officers are doubling up, so there will only be 2 at a time, and the department says this could affect response time.
Though Massachusetts doesn't consider EMS essential, ambulance agencies that do exist must follow the state's rules and regulations for operation. That's where CLAP steps in, providing technical assistance to each ambulance service, helping each first responder stay up to date on their certifications, and making sure each agency is following state mandates. CLAP and just 1 other employee do all of that oversight for more than 55 different ambulance services.
We went from 4 to 2 people over the last number of years because of the budget cuts, and that has really hampered our ability to provide the kind of services that not only are necessary but are required.
Her work is funded by the legislature and administered through the State Department of Public Health. But CLAP isn't the only one who's overwhelmed. Just take it from those who actually do the work.
They're not coming out in droves to do it anymore.
EMTs and paramedics say they're seeing a mass exodus from the EMS field, especially from private ambulance services.
You have to put in overtime all the time just to cover those minimal expenses. Lots of people are transitioning towards municipalities or just getting out.
There's a definite shortage right now of people that are going to school and passing the test.
COVID-19 created the perfect storm for eating disorders among young people. Western Mass News reporter Mary Wilson explains how the pandemic unmasked and exacerbated this public health crisis.
Layla Plant has been battling an eating disorder for years. She and her stepmom Karen check in at Walden Behavioral Care's Amherst Clinic, where the 13-year-old is getting help.
I was always afraid of the texture. I really still am anxious about crumbs. I never liked pizza.
Layla had always avoided certain foods, living on applesauce and oatmeal, but last year it came to a breaking point.
It really hit us in the beginning of COVID. She had a lot of, I think, stress and anxiety with the changes in school and remote school, and she lost a lot of weight.
Layla's weight got down to a critical level, and Karen feared for her daughter's life.
She put on leggings one day, and they were falling off of her, and leggings, usually are a bit more snug. So to see that, and she had her eyes were sunken in, her coloring was very pale. She just didn't have a lot of energy. It was really scary to see.
This sophomore class at Chicopee High School is hard at work on their Chromebooks. It's the only type of screen time they're allowed at school.
I feel like crazy for saying this, but I actually really like it. Like, at first I did not like the idea at all. I thought like my world was gonna end.
The cell phone ban at Chicopee High School gives Juliana Gayek a break from scrolling on the most popular app among teens, TikTok, where young people can be sucked into a world of physical perfection.
There's a bunch of like famous TikTokers that have like a bunch of money, and they have all this like style and they like are skinny and stuff. So it's like it's definitely really easy to compare them because you're definitely not as good as them.
TikTok's algorithm keeps young people scrolling by tracking what they're watching and liking, then flooding them with more and more of it. So if a teen lingers on a TikTok about depression or weight loss, they can be pulled down a dangerous rabbit hole.
It's hard sometimes to be scrolling on social media and you see these skinny, pretty girls with all the likes, and there's not a lot of people that look like me personally. So it kind of like messes with your head a little bit sometimes.
In fact, this possible link between TikTok and teens' mental health is under investigation by Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey, with a focus on TikTok's methods of boosting engagement and time spent on the app.
What did TikTok know? How did it design its algorithm? Did it know that it designed its algorithm in a way to make people watch for longer periods of time, especially our young people? And our strong belief is that they did. And the concern is they did that knowing that that increased screen time among our teens is actually increasing real depression, anxiety, even suicidality out there among our young people.
Recent findings of toxic mold inside the Roderick Island courthouse sparked conversations across the state. And perhaps one of the most shocking factors is the number of employees who died from ALS, known as Lou Gehrig's disease, who all worked in the same part of the courthouse.
Whether or not this is coincidental, it should be examined.
ALS is a disorder of the nervous system that weakens muscles and impacts physical function. It starts with a partial paralysis, then full paralysis, and typically results in a breathing failure death in about 3 to 5 years of the diagnosis. And there is no known cure.
It typically affects something like 3 or 4, maybe 5 people per 100,000.
Dr. Robert Brown, a neurology professor at UMass Chan Medical School, says in order to determine just how significant the coincidence is, you have to look at the denominator. So 5 deaths out of how many people? We weren't able to narrow down just how many people have worked in the office in question over the past 20 years after reaching out to numerous officials in the courthouse. But we did learn there are about 500 people who work inside the courthouse on any given day. And even with that information, Dr. Brown says 5 is a shocking number.
Even if it's a fairly large number, that does seem like a high number of ALS cases, particularly given that, as I understand it, some of the individuals had literally been in the same chambers.
3 of the people who died are judges who use the same lobby. Judge Alphonse Turcotte died of ALS in 2003, Judge Robert Coomer Jr. died in 2013, and Judge William Boyle in 2019. Another employee had an office right above the judge's lobby, and the 5th employee worked in another part of the building, both passing away with ALS. Nearly 2 years ago in March, the COVID-19 virus forced education systems across the world to adjust in ways they never thought were possible. In-person teaching quickly became online learning, and teachers were put to the test.
Just being so far away always made me feel very, very unhappy.
TJ Rios is a 9th grade literature teacher at Libertas Academy. Her first year teaching was interrupted by the pandemic. She says the hardest part about it was not being able to connect with her students.
It just made it that much harder for us to build those connections with our students and be that person that can be there for them and also care about them.
And that distance with her students created a challenge for her that ultimately affected her mental health.
I think it really just got to a point where things just got more complicated, things just got sadder, and it was just really hard to cope with that.
Other teachers had similar feelings.
It takes a toll on myself, and I know other teachers as well.
Melissa Tavares is a health education teacher at Chicopee High School.
Come in and want the same thing too immediately after. How did you handle that?
She tells Western Mass News she never imagined the pandemic would close down her school. Now she's trying to adjust to a new normal. With masks on and other COVID-19 protocols, she says it's hard to keep her students alert and dedicated to their work.
And this kind of almost stopped everybody. And then they kind of started to slide down with their motivation and their energy levels, and they tune out much quicker. Their attention spans are shorter.
So, like many others, she had to adjust the way she teaches.
I want them to be talking themselves more. Like it's more discussion-based. We'll do group work and everything for the students just to have what they missed out on for so long.
And while focusing on her students' education, she also had to focus on her own mental health by setting boundaries.
Learning it's okay, I need to actually put down my phone, stop doing either schoolwork or whatever it really is, and just take time to, think about myself.
Another local teacher also had to pivot to adjust to the challenges of online learning.
So real quick, a la carte, this week we have cheeseburger chowder.
My biggest concern was being able to get the level of instruction to the students in the manner that I needed to.
Chef Eric Rogers is a culinary arts instructor at Westfield Technical Academy. He typically teaches his class with a hands-on approach, giving students real-life skills they can use in the restaurant business one day. But virtual learning made his methods a lot more difficult.
I was just very concerned that students were going to be left behind if they didn't have what they needed at that moment to be successful.
But he found a way, something he says was a positive impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, since his culinary arts students are studying to become chefs.
We can do this. We can do curbside pickup. We can do takeout.
He had his students transform the school's restaurant Tiger's Pride to adjust to the COVID-19 protocols, providing them with real-life experience.
So here's a situation, we really can't control it, but what can we do about it? How can we alter what we typically do and still meet the demands of our customers?
And although it wasn't always easy, Chef Rogers says he has a lot to be grateful for.
If anything, it's brought me closer with my family, it's brought me closer with my students, my peers that I work with here and colleagues. It's kind of brought us together as more of a family.